You know, it's funny. We see all these videos online of robots, doing these incredible things like dancing or even like performing surgery. It's really amazing.
It is.
But today we're going to be looking at a world where robots are like stepping up in a totally new way.
Oh, dear.
Disaster response.
Wow.
Yeah, so think like burning buildings.
Oh, wow.
Floods, the aftermath of earthquakes.
Right.
Situations that are just like incredibly dangerous for humans to be in.
Yeah, it's fascinating how robots are like moving beyond, those controlled environments.
Yeah.
Or we typically see them like factories and warehouses.
Right.
And going into these like complex, chaotic scenarios.
Exactly. Like, remember those drones flying over the Notre Dame Cathedral fire?
Yeah.
It was pretty awe-inspiring.
Totally.
But what about like robots actually like going into those unstable buildings, searching for survivors or helping to assess the damage after like a chemical spill or something?
Right.
That's the kind of cutting-edge stuff we're exploring today.
Yeah. And we've got a great resource to guide us on this deep dive.
Okay, awesome.
It's a 2023 research report from the German Rescue Robotics Center,
Okay.
also known as the DRZ.
DRZ.
Yeah. And what sets them apart is that they're focused on real disasters,
Okay.
not simulations or lab tests.
Gotcha.
They embed their researchers with actual first responders, specifically firefighters,
Oh, wow.
for a truly hands-on learning experience on both sides.
That's such a cool approach.
Yeah.
So much more practical than just like working in a lab.
Definitely.
I'm curious, what kind of setup does the DRZ have for these real-world deployments?
Well, they've got a pretty impressive setup.
Okay.
Picture this, a custom robotics command vehicle,
Okay.
essentially a mobile HQ packed with high-tech equipment.
Wow.
And they drive this right to the disaster site.
Oh, wow.
This vehicle's called the RobLW.
RobLW.
It acts as their nerve center,
Okay.
allows them to operate even when power's out or communication lines are down.
Right, which happens a lot in disaster zones.
Exactly. Happens all the time.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense.
Yeah.
It's like a self-contained mission control on wheels.
Pretty much, yeah.
So what kind of robots are we talking about here?
They use a mix of robots, each with its own strengths.
Okay.
For aerial reconnaissance and getting a bird's eye view, they've got different kinds of drones.
Okay.
Some are off-the-shelf commercial drones.
Mm-hmm.
The kind from companies like DJI
Right.
that you might see people using for photography and
Right,
stuff.
for sure.
But they also have custom-built drones specifically designed for the tough conditions of disaster zones,
Okay.
like the D1 copter.
Okay, custom-built drones.
Yeah.
That sounds pretty intense.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
What makes them different?
Well, the D1 copter, for example,
Okay.
it's a modified DJI drone, but with some serious upgrades.
Gotcha.
It's got onboard sensors and processing power
Okay.
that allow it to navigate even in GPS-denied areas.
Oh, wow. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah.
So it's not just about having a drone that can fly in tight spaces.
All right.
It's got to be able to find its way around even when it can't rely on GPS.
Exactly.
Wow.
And in addition to the drones, they also have a ground robot.
Okay.
It's called the Telerob Telemax Hybrid.
The Telemax.
It's capable of manipulating objects.
Okay.
It's got a gripper arm,
Gotcha.
and it's loaded with sensors for 3D mapping and obstacle avoidance.
3D mapping. I've heard that term before, but can you break that down for me a bit?
Sure.
Like, what exactly does that do, and how does it help in a disaster situation?
So imagine being able to create a virtual replica of a collapsed building
Okay.
or a flooded area.
Okay. Yeah.
That's essentially what 3D mapping does.
Wow.
The robot's sensors collect data about the environment,
Right.
creating this detailed 3D model
Okay.
that first responders can then use
Okay.
to visualize the scene plan routes, identify potential hazards,
Right.
and even assess structural weaknesses.
So it's like giving them X-ray vision into the disaster zone.
Exactly. It's like having that extra layer of insight.
That's incredible.
Yeah, it's really valuable.
So they're not just going in blind.
Right.
They're using these robots to gather information and make informed decisions in real time.
Exactly, making those critical decisions with the best possible data.
Okay, so let's say you're a first responder showing up at one of these disaster scenes,
Mm-hmm.
and you see the DRZ roll in with this high-tech command center
Right.
and all these robots.
Yeah.
What's going through your mind?
I think it would be a mix of relief and excitement.
Okay.
Relief, because you've got some serious backup
Right.
with cutting-edge technology on your side.
For sure.
And excitement, because you're about to see these robots in action
Yeah.
doing things that would be incredibly risky or even impossible for humans to do.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
It's not about replacing human expertise.
Right.
It's about having these incredible tools that can augment what first responders can do.
Exactly, augmenting their capability.
Keeping them safer and
Right.
giving them more information to work with.
Okay, I'm ready to hear about some real-world examples.
All right, let's dive into some case studies.
What kind of situations has the DRZ actually deployed these robots in?
Well, there are a few cases that really highlight the effectiveness of this approach.
Okay, let's hear.
So one case that really highlights the value of this approach is this fire they responded to in Berlin back in 2021. Imagine this an industrial hall engulfed in flames.
Wow.
So intense that it's releasing toxic cyanide gas.
Oh my gosh.
Obviously, sending humans inside is just out of the question.
Yeah, that sounds absolutely terrifying.
Yeah.
What could they even do in a situation like that?
Well, this is where the robots really shine.
Okay.
The DRZ team deployed several drones,
Mm-hmm.
including the DJI Mavic 2 and Phantom 4.
Okay.
They used these drones to create a detailed digital map
Right?
of both the exterior and the interior of the building.
Wow.
This gave them a really clear picture of the damage,
Mm-hmm.
potential entry points, and the overall risk,
Yeah.
all without putting any human lives in danger.
So the drones are basically acting as the eyes and ears of the first responders, giving them this vital information before they even set foot in the danger zone.
That's exactly right.
That's amazing.
And they even got creative with their approach.
Oh, really?
So to get a closer look at some hard-to-reach areas inside the building,
Okay.
they attached a 360-degree camera to one of the drones
Mm-hmm.
and lowered it down on a rope through openings in the roof.
Oh, wow. That's some serious ingenuity.
Yeah, they had to think outside the box a little bit.
It sounds like this case really pushed the limits of what these drones could do.
It really did.
What were some of the key takeaways from this deployment?
Well, one of the big lessons learned was the need for even more robust drones.
Oh, okay.
You know, the extreme heat and the smoke from the fire really put the drones to the test,
Right.
highlighting the importance of having drones that can withstand those harsh conditions.
Yeah, for sure.
They also realized the potential of using drone swarms
Okay.
for even larger scale disasters. Having multiple drones working together to cover more ground and gather information more quickly.
Right. More drones, more eyes in the sky.
Exactly.
Makes sense.
So how about another deployment?
Yeah, let's hear it.
All right, this next case was their response to the devastating floods in Erfstadt, Germany back in 2021.
Oh, yeah.
So picture a town completely submerged in water.
Wow.
Rising flood levels, threatening a dam collapse,
Oh, God.
and reports of missing people.
Right.
It was just a chaotic and dangerous situation.
Yeah, I remember seeing the news reports of those floods.
Yeah.
Just heartbreaking.
Yeah, it was really tough.
I can only imagine how challenging it must have been for those rescue teams.
Oh, absolutely. It was a very difficult situation.
Yeah.
But this is where the DRZ's mobile command center that RobLW we talked about earlier
Yeah.
really proved its worth.
Okay.
They were able to drive right into the affected area
Mm.
and operate independently even without access to power or internet,
Oh, wow.
which had been knocked out by the floods.
That's amazing.
Yeah, they were completely self-sufficient.
So they were literally bringing the tech to the disaster zone,
That's
creating their own little oasis of connectivity in the middle of all that chaos.
a great way to put it.
Yeah.
So they used a variety of drones for this mission,
Okay.
including the UNIAC Typhoon,
Mm-hmm.
DJI Mavic 2, Phantom 4,
Right.
and even the agile DJI FPV drone
Okay.
to get a really comprehensive view of the situation.
Wow. So they were really using like all the tools in their arsenal.
They had to, yeah.
Yeah.
So they were able to quickly assess the damage,
Mm-hmm.
monitor the changing water levels,
Right.
and even help search for missing people.
Wow.
All tasks that would have been incredibly risky for human rescue teams.
Yeah, for sure. In a situation like that,
Right.
where time is of the essence,
Absolutely.
conditions are constantly changing.
Right.
Having that real-time information from the drones could literally mean the difference between life and death.
I think you're absolutely right. And there's something in the report that I found particularly interesting here.
Okay.
So while the drones were critical for gathering information,
Mm-hmm.
it was the human team back at the RobLW who were analyzing that data,
Right.
making decisions,
Yeah.
and coordinating the response efforts.
Right.
It really highlights the importance of that human-robot partnership.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Yeah.
It's not about the robots taking over.
No.
It's about humans and robots working together,
Right.
each playing to their strengths.
Exactly.
Okay, I'm ready for one more case study.
Right. One more case study.
What else did you find in the report?
Okay, well, the third deployment they highlighted was a fire that broke out in a residential complex in Essen in 2022.
Okay.
This fire was particularly challenging because
man.
it spread with such incredible speed
Wow.
that it even caught the experts off guard.
Oh my gosh, that's scary.
Yeah, it was a really fast-moving fire.
Yeah, I can only imagine how quickly a fire like that could turn deadly.
Right, it can happen so fast.
Yeah.
And the main challenge here was to determine the cause of the fire.
Right.
But the building itself was deemed too unsafe to enter.
Okay.
So the DRZ team took a multi-robot approach.
Okay.
They started with those smaller drones,
Right.
equipped with 360-degree cameras, just to get an initial overview of the scene
Okay.
and identify any potential hazards.
So they're sending in the small agile drones first, kind of like scouts,
Exactly.
to assess the situation before they bring in the bigger guns.
That's right.
Yeah, okay.
And once they had a better understanding of the layout
Right.
and the potential dangers,
Okay.
they brought in their tracked UGV,
Mm-hmm.
the Telerob Telemax Hybrid.
Oh, okay.
It's designed for navigating uneven terrain and debris,
Right.
which was crucial in this situation.
For sure.
They used it for a more detailed inspection of the building,
Okay.
all while a drone flew overhead,
Oh, wow.
providing a live eye-in-the-sky view
Right.
to support the UGV's navigation.
So they're literally using one robot to support another, creating a whole robotic team working together.
That's right, a coordinated effort.
What a fascinating approach.
It's pretty cool how they can work together like that.
Were there any challenges that they encountered during this deployment?
Yeah, there were still some hurdles,
Okay.
even with all this advanced technology.
Hmm.
The report mentions that the robot's movement through the debris was quite slow,
Okay.
and they had some issues with the network connection being unreliable,
Right.
which really emphasizes the need for even greater autonomy in these robots.
Yeah, it makes sense
Yeah.
that in a chaotic environment like a fire,
Right.
where things are constantly changing,
Yeah,
you'd want your robots to be able to make some decisions on their own
definitely.
without constantly needing instructions from a human operator.
It just makes things more efficient
Right.
and safer.
Yeah,
And beyond autonomy, reliable communication is key as well.
of course.
If the connection between the robot and the operator is constantly dropping out, that can severely hamper the effectiveness of the whole operation.
Yeah, so it's not just about building robots that can do amazing things.
Right.
It's about making sure they can operate reliably
Mm,
and effectively in the real world,
exactly.
where things rarely go according to plan.
That's the key takeaway.
Right.
So these three cases really highlight how the DRZ is pushing the boundaries
Yeah.
of what's possible with robot-assisted disaster response, but also the importance of learning from those real-world experiences
Right.
to refine and improve the technology.
Yeah, it's like they're constantly iterating,
Exactly.
testing, and learning,
Yeah.
just like any cutting-edge field.
It's an evolving field for sure.
Okay, so we've seen how these robots are being used in the field.
Mm-hmm.
But what about the human side of things?
Right.
I'm curious to know more about this idea of human-robot teaming that you mentioned earlier.
Okay.
What does that look like in practice,
Yeah.
and what are some of the challenges?
Great question. Yeah, it's a really interesting area. And one that the DRZ emphasizes in their report.
Okay.
You know, it's not just about having cool robots.
Right.
It's about making sure that those robots integrate seamlessly with the human teams that are already on the ground.
Right.
You need clear communication, well-defined roles,
Mm-hmm.
and a real sense of trust
Yeah,
between the humans and the robots.
that makes sense.
Right.
I mean, if you're a firefighter
Yeah.
running into a burning building,
Mm-hmm.
you need to know that the robot alongside you is going to be reliable
Absolutely.
and do what it's supposed to do.
Yeah. And the report actually highlights some cases
Oh, really?
where miscommunication or a lack of understanding of the robot's capabilities
Right.
led to some less than ideal outcomes.
Oh, wow. So it can actually like hinder the rescue efforts.
Yeah, potentially.
Wow.
For example, there was one instance where a drone was sent to inspect a collapsed structure.
Okay.
But the first responders weren't quite sure how to interpret the data it was sending back. This led to some delays in the rescue effort.
So it's not enough to just have the technology.
Right.
You also need to train the first responders on how to use it effectively.
Exactly. Training is essential.
That sounds like a huge challenge.
It is a big challenge, but it's also a huge opportunity.
Right.
The DRZ is actually advocating for more joint training exercises
Oh, yeah.
between first responders and robot teams.
Makes sense.
You know, they believe that by getting everyone familiar with the technology
Right.
and working together in these simulated disaster scenarios,
Yeah.
they can build that trust and understanding that's so essential for effective human-robot teaming.
I can see how that would be incredibly valuable.
Yeah.
Imagine a fire station where robots are just as much a part of the team as the human firefighters.
That's the goal.
You know, they train together, they respond to calls together.
Right.
It becomes like a seamless partnership.
Exactly, a well-oiled machine.
Yeah.
And as the technology continues to evolve, we'll likely see even more sophisticated forms of human-robot collaboration.
That's really cool.
Yeah, imagine a robot that can actually understand and respond to a first responder's voice commands.
Wow, yeah.
Or a drone that can autonomously follow a firefighter through a burning building, providing real-time situational awareness.
It's incredible to think how far we've come with this technology.
It really is.
And how much further we can go.
Yeah, who knows what the future holds.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into this fascinating report, what are some of the key takeaways for you?
Well, I think the biggest takeaway is that robot-assisted disaster response is no longer a sci-fi fantasy. It's a reality that's happening right now.
Absolutely.
We're seeing these robots deployed in real-world situations, making a real difference.
And what's really exciting is that this technology is just getting started.
Oh, actually.
We're only scratching the surface of what's possible.
Yeah, just the beginning.
But as we move forward, it's important to remember that technology is only part of the equation.
Definitely.
The real key to success lies in that human-robot partnership.
Couldn't agree more.
We need to invest in training, develop clear communication protocols, and build trust between humans and robots.
Trust is essential.
It's about finding that sweet spot where human expertise and robotic capabilities come together to create something truly powerful.
A true synergy.
Okay, so for our listeners out there who are just as fascinated by this topic as we are, what's something they can ponder as they go about their day?
Well, I think it's worth considering how this technology could be applied beyond disaster response.
Oh, yeah, that's a great point.
You know, we've talked about search and rescue.
Right.
But what about using robots for hazardous material handling, infrastructure inspection, or even exploring extreme environments like the deep sea or outer space?
Wow.
The possibilities are truly endless.
That's a great point. It's a field that's ripe for innovation.
Absolutely.
And it's exciting to think about what the future holds.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see where it goes.
So to our listeners, if you're interested in learning more about robot-assisted disaster response or robotics in general, there are tons of resources available online.
Yeah, definitely.
You can check out the DRZ website for more information about their research or dive into the world of robotics podcasts and online forums.
That idea.
It's a fascinating field.
It is.
And one that we'll definitely be keeping an eye on.
Absolutely.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
It was my pleasure.
Until next time, keep exploring.
Keep learning.